You know what? I'll do one more and I'll just kind of send it. I'm not gonna spend so long trying to min-max, right? Because I do want to talk about one more thing, which was today or a while back. A few people invited me to play in this thing called the Diabolical Wipeout League. Wipeout is a mode I think it actually is pretty decent. Like, it's far from a perfect competitive mode. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna contest that, but there's a little bit of macro strategy that goes on, and it's a very mechanics-heavy game mode. Right, so I enjoy it. I enjoy it. In my time of being like away from the community and from like playing on my own for the most part, I played quite a bit of Diabolical Warm-Up. I'm sorry, I don't know what language this is actually. It's I had to think about it for a moment. Is it a website? .info. Fuck you. Nonetheless, playing in Diabolical Wipeout League, and oh, sorry, I was doing a little Diabolical Warm-Up where you would run into a lot of slightly higher tier gamers there. And so I'm like, I kept getting this urge to keep logging on and do better against these specific players, just in terms of like general performance, right? De Pablo. Is this Spanish? I think it is, right? Where are we? Is this Spain? This canal here. Does such a canal exist? Well, obviously it does, but is it here is the question. Nonetheless, when I was approached by Element asking me if I wanted to join the Wipeout League team, I'm like, sure. Like, I've been meaning to, or it'd be cool to have a competitive outlet in order to find, or like to put to the test what I've been working on, right? And today we had our first match against a team that no one's heard of, but honestly, they were actually pretty good. Like, from watching back the gameplay, like the VOD that someone put on YouTube, I was actually very impressed with their mechanics. Like, even like professional players that I would watch from time to time, like obviously they're very good, but typically they're not that mechanics heavy. I would. That's actually not fair. I wouldn't even say that they're typically not mechanics heavy. Just like you can see that there's a certain lack of mouse control and consistency to their aim, right? Which is fine because they make up for it with all the other good parts of their game. I don't know where I am, man. I think I'm in like urban Spain. I could be completely wrong. Okay, it was Spain, but it was a different urban area. And there's the canal. Okay. Obviously, I'm so stupid, man. Obviously, you don't put it in the middle of Madrid where there's no water source nearby. That's good. Whatever. I identified the country. I'm happy with that. The Bouquet. French speaking. I'm thinking Canada, but it could just be France. Could it be like... No. We're on the right side of the road. Does French do that? I think they do as well. Dr. Roux. But nonetheless, we had our first game today against some very respectable players. We haven't practiced at all. For a few reasons, mostly because we're just playing it for fun, but I'm not someone who is going to go into a competitive game and like not stress about it to some extent, right? I think my mental game as a competitor and as a gamer is actually really, really bad. Le Whopper. And for those of you who have played with me, like that's probably really not news to you. That phone number. I don't think it's North American. So this must be France, right? It doesn't really... it doesn't inspire that much confidence in me here. But yeah, those of you who've played with me know that I crack pretty easily under pressure. Yeah, it's France. And I just have a difficult time dealing with nerves in general, or just pressure in general. So when the time came, I was concerned that I would be like shaking really bad. Like when I played against that person I mentioned earlier, I was actually very nervous and my aim was very noticeably shaky. I'm talking about that MGE anecdote. But in this case, I would have thought it would be far worse because like it's a 1v1 game mode. We're just having fun talking. Who cares? In this case, I thought it would be a lot more serious. But actually, on the actual nerves side of things, I think my practice with meditation did pretty good work for me in this case, where I didn't really feel the nerves that much. Like I wasn't shaking. I didn't like. Sometimes when I'm really nervous, I would feel cold and like shivering. Right, that didn't happen in this case. I felt alright. I felt pretty comfortable. But my aim was still terrible. My rail aim is actually pretty good through the course of that game. But my LG was so bad. And I'm an LG player. I've made myself into an LG player because it's the playstyle I thought would be the most enjoyable to improve at. And I was right. Very satisfying. But when your LG is hitting and you're an LG player and you're not quite good enough at dodging to justify hitting at like 40% or less LG, and it's definitely less in a lot of these cases here, it was an uphill battle. I felt extremely bad about myself. I'm very much, I wouldn't say a stat whore, but like kind of. I'm just dropping this in France, by the way. I can't do this. Clermont-Ferrand, I feel good about you. I should always just drop out of the capital, apparently. Paris would have been such a sick guess. This is surprisingly like suburban for somewhere so close to Paris. But yeah, I played so badly in the first match. I kept feeding. I kept like missing all the shots that I needed to hit. Does it say Tanzania? If it's a Tanzania, I'm saved because I never in a million years would have guessed that. No, this is Tabitakua. What are these tricked out cars, by the way? I'm just realizing now, like, huh? That's crazy. Everyone's got these like weird different colorations around the wheels. That's so strange to me. And they speak English? Wall charts? If you could see my face right now, it's a face of shock and just being completely open-mouthed. So I'm pretty sure we're somewhere in Africa, and my gut is telling me like South Africa. I don't know languages well enough though. I thought South Africa was not really that English reliant. Job vacancy. Wow. What? This really says Allahu Akbar? That is confusing. I was so certain we were in Africa, and I still kind of think we are. I guess the culture could be, you know, present. Water is life, keep it clean always. Okay, yeah, the spelling of that assembly is extremely African. But where are we? I think it's South Africa. I don't know where though. Let's say Bloemfontein. It's not. It's Ghana. Wow. How do you figure that? I thought Ghana was one of the French-speaking ones. Damn. Well, right continent. And for Africa, I guess that means something. Jesus Christ. But what I was realizing, it was like I spent my entire time. This doesn't mean to come off as offensive. I really enjoyed the time I spent in the community and playing Diabolical, right? But it's like the entire time I was playing in the kiddie pool, and now I'm in the ocean. Right? It was a drastic change of pace. The fact that I would make a mistake positionally that typically would go unpunished because I have the mechanics to get out of that situation. Instantly, I would have 3 players hounding me, and I would just be instantly dead, not able to do any sort of retaliation, no matter how good my aim is. right? And that kind of like instant feedback was so important for me as the match progressed, because it's just something I never really had before. Like even when I would play warm-up games against like a bunch of really good players, like people Carwick would join, or like other professional players that would be top duelists, I would just like shake it off like, oh, it's just warm-up spawn RNG, right? It's because it is, right? You can't learn anything about positioning in a warm-up game. And I tried to pay attention to it more towards the end of my time in the Diabolical Wipeout community games. But even then, like, you can't... Huh. What language is that? But even then, you can't really... Like, I had this theory that, when you're playing in lower level games, you can still glean some benefit from your decision making based on identifying when you do something that works but it shouldn't have, which I think is true, but it is so much easier to identify when that happens if you are immediately punished for it. This is Japanese, by the way, I'm fairly certain, but this is not. This is throwing me for a loop. I think we're like someone out here, obviously. How do you guys write? It looks kind of similar, doesn't it? Man, that's strange. Malaysia? No. I'm just looking for names of like cities that have the same text style. Wow, this is so difficult for me. There is no way in hell I'm going to be able to identify it accurately. We're definitely like in this region. Wait, hold on. This looks quite similar, does it not? Put us in Yapatya. Sri Lanka. Wow. I would have never guessed that. Wow. That's tough. Well, the more you know. The more you know. I don't know what language that is. Sinhala and Tamil? I don't think I've heard of either of those in my entire life. Was this in the thousands? Okay, it's... Oh, it's percentage. Gotcha. English is quite small, actually. Yeah, that's what it is. That was Sinhala. Wow. Minnesota Avenue? Don't believe it's lies. Florida State University? We're getting mixed signals? Okay. Thank you, soccer mom, for having this on your car. This is the tackiest shit of all time, but... I swear, if you've misled me, you will never see the day. You will rue the day that you dare to put such a sticker upon your windshield. But yeah, it really pays off to be playing against better players in terms of your own self-analysis, right? It like as soon as I had that experience today, I'm like, I want to play TFT Pugs. I want to do like Diabolical Wipeout games with like top tier players only. Like not even within the community. I want to go outside of it, which I was previously like very afraid of, but like it needs to happen. It needs to happen for growth. You can only get so good based on like the parameters of your surroundings, you know? But nonetheless, in game 2, right? I was pretty down on myself, but I didn't let it get to me that bad. So I guess honestly my mental game could have been a lot worse. I still thought we could definitely take it away, even though we got 4-0'd very fast on Wellspring, and I was playing so bad. I started making calls. Like I started making like implanting some ideas of like we need to slow down, we need to push at certain times, etc., etc. these are the weaknesses that we're showing, and like this is how we should go about fixing it. And I don't think I really did too much in order to like main call us to victory, right, or anything like that. Like that's definitely an extension of the truth. But I started to understand the game better. I started to understand what mistakes will get me killed instantly, and how I can play this to be like a supportive player, because I knew my mechanics were not on point that day, or I guess today. So what I can do is like get information from my team, play to support them in fights. I wouldn't say like kind of baiting them, but like someone's gonna be taking the heat, and if I can be doing a ton of damage to support them in 2v1s, like that's perfect. And finding those isolated 2v1s was something we had to work on as well, because we just played way too aggressive at first. Like our DM will carry us and we'll just win, which could have happened, but not against players of that caliber. Like they were good. I'm going in circles, by the way. I don't know how to get out of this purgatory. Back at Florida lady. I also called her a soccer mom. I can't actually see them. It's a little bit presumptuous. It's a joke, okay? It's a joke. Don't cancel me. Lyon Haven Utility Department. It's probably like a county, right? I'm not really too sure what I could do with that information. But yeah, game 2, we won 4-1. I had like 70% rail. I was just playing super passive for the most part, and then like I had a better understanding of the game. After one game, I wouldn't say that my play transformed in a huge way, and I was still making a lot of blunders here and there, but there was change for sure within all of us, without a doubt. We're making better decisions, we're playing more as a team, and like that was so insanely satisfying. Think we can find the park here? Kane Griffin Park? No chance. But yeah, like in my head, I've always thought like I want to be good at a game where it's always my fault whether or not I win or lose, because like it's better for my type of personality, right? It's much easier to determine how the next steps to take to improve as a player. But like the coordination that we were pulling off, like supporting each other, and like we would get so hyped anytime we killed anyone. Like we would win a 2v1 and be like, nice, and we went around and we'd be screaming, and at the end of the game, like, oh my god, we popped off so hard because we won the last game 4-0. We reverse swept them, and like, fuck man, that was so satisfying to see like our working as a group and all the time we put into practicing our mechanics. Me in particular, like always wanted to get better at that sort of stuff. And like there was one time I was last alive. I was in a corridor stuck with some dude with a rocket launcher. I pulled off the Suin dodges, which is like dodging into the wall, which just seems nonsensical, but like no one predicts it, right? Did it 3 times in a row, and he did 10 damage to me. I'm like, I'm alive. Get fucked. I'm out of there. See you later. like all of these ideas I had come into practice in this one, like, where it mattered, right? This is where it matters. This is where all the practice you put into beforehand finally has a place to like show itself and be important, instead of just being like pub stomping. That's kind of how I felt about raiding in MMOs too, and I had actually a very interesting conversation with someone who was very like-minded to me and ended up both playing and putting a lot of time into Blade and Soul. Was that he felt like LANs or tournaments in general were very similar to him to the way raids were, where you spend the whole week practicing and getting better at the game, and the raid or the tournament is where you really show up and where it all actually matters, where you put everything on the line. And of course, it's a free league. Like, we're not trying that hard. But even the idea of it is just like, it's so much different than just playing an Apex Legends pub and trying to become in first place and get your victory royale. You know, that offers a certain amount of dopamine, but it's not the same as when like you're a finely oiled machine trying to beat out this other team of coordinated players that have thousands of hours in game. Like that's what esports should be, and that's like what CS is, right? But it's just not what AFPS is now. I mean, it is, but it's dead, right? It's really, my complaint is with Apex, right? I think, okay, what is with this place and naming streets after states? That's not okay. But I think it's so lame that the people who are considered the best and the people who are like idolized by the community are the people who are the flashiest and are the pub stoppers. Right, so we got your Fades, your like It's Timmy's, your who else was there? Like Asu to some extent, but he was actually pretty good. Like Dizzy as well. And like no hate to those guys, of course. Like they're great FPS players, but it's so much cooler to me to see someone like have a competitive history of like Rafa or like Claws or people who have made the history of a game of competing against each other. They run into each other in tournaments all the time, and like you can watch the history and that comes to play in each match, how things change every time they encounter each other. Like it's just so rich and interesting. And when it comes to team-based games, like seeing people who like have a roster and stick with it for years and years, and you can see that like maybe they're behind mechanically, but as a coordinated unit, like they can't be beat. Like, I'm just gushing at this point. I think like esports is neat, but more importantly, I think that AFPS is really neat, and it like really opened my eyes to playing team-based games competitively in a different light, where I wouldn't say I didn't respect it in the past, because that's definitely not the case. That's funny. Did they lose a letter between this time gap? They lost the H. Hold on, this one has a street sign? Oops. A something development. Okay, that's not useful to me. Well, again, I mean, it says North Haven. What if it's in the north of Florida? Ever thought about that? Very suburban, very suburban. So where would we end up then? Maybe like around here? Northwest? Crystal Springs? I got nothing, man. I'm gonna put it here. You have amazing as your name. Okay. Thank you, Soccer Mom, for having the Florida tag on your car, because that definitely saved me from getting a completely wrong answer. I don't know if I would have gotten it without that. Well, 13k is actually terrible. What happens? Oh, right. The African guess. That's right. That's what happened. And what was this one? Round 4? It was Myanmar and Sri Lanka. Like, I can't, I don't know. What do you want from me? But yeah, that's pretty much what I had to talk about when it came to like wanting to play games competitively. Is that like with time I just find myself more and more invested in the idea of like putting a ton of time into one thing and then getting to not an untouchable level, obviously, because it's unreasonable, but just like to being up there like a known player. I think that would be neat. But it's just in such a state right now where there's nothing out there on the market that I can really see myself doing that with. Like, the closest thing I can think of is Apex, and like I just talked about, it's just so lame. Like, that's not what I want to be doing. I want to be fighting more often. Like, I'm not saying that I need to have high action combat all the time, because like when we slowed it down in those Diabolical games, like that was some of them. Okay, this is an offensive piece of music, and so is this. Okay. But when we slowed it down, like that was some of the most interesting parts of the game, of like figuring out when to make that execution. And when I make that call of like, okay, I think we've done enough damage, find a way in, right? That was very satisfying to see that play to come to fruition and having it have some success. I don't think it won us the round, but we won the exchange. But I didn't even know where I was going with that tangent. My brain just stopped working for a moment. What the heck? I don't know, man. There's just no games out there right now. That's what I was going to talk about. That I could see myself doing that with. Like, the one thing that I think maybe I could get invested enough in to spend that much time with is probably Melee. But I haven't even started, right? It's a little bit too late, I think. I'm not really the type to say that you can't get good if the game has already been out for a while, because that's just not the case, right? Like, Zane came out of nowhere. He started playing after the documentary was released. Like, a new wave of players, and now he's, like, arguably the best in the world. Like, what, 5 years in a 15-year-old game? Definitely possible. But now that it's in this far into its lifespan, and I would also prefer an FPS game, because FPS games speak to me in a way that other games do not, and movement shooters speak to me in a way that other games do not. Like, even Titanfall, people love that game to death, and I just don't see the same level of intrigue from it that I do from, like, TF2 or from Quake likes. Like, those micro interactions, that was the term I was looking for earlier, of outplaying your opponent in such a subtle way that it's not even apparent to the people watching. I think that's a level of beauty that comes from high time to kill, and is something that really doesn't come through in a lot of more modern games. A lot of times it's just like you outplay them for 1 second, you make one correct decision, and they're done, right? Oh yeah, I mean, this has gone on for a bit longer than I expected. It's been an hour and a half playing GeoGuessr. I actually expected to just talk about GeoGuessr for the majority of the time, but I kind of went back into streamer mode a little bit, talking about some other things that's been on my mind recently. Yeah, it was fun. I'm still enjoying this game. I'll probably do a little bit more. I want to get better at identifying the countries without spending so much time to figure it out. I think that my country recognition is actually decent now. What's terrible is my pinpoint location. I can't do it. I really can't. I need to be spoon-fed the information. I don't know enough about these places to say, like, oh, this part, you know, is more mountainous, near the water, or like less urbanized, and then figure it out based on that. Like, I can't do that. Like, these guesses as well, like, that was impossible for me. Didn't have enough information. This one threw me for a loop, man. The previous game was fun though. I like that one a lot. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about. I don't know what I'm gonna be doing in the future. Finish up the video. Maybe we'll do some more of this. It's fun to just talk to myself, play some Geo. See how I improve as well as I podcast through it. Yeah, thanks for watching.